everyone, Kevin here once again with my 1, 2, 3 cents, and I'm going to be offering my opinions, my thoughts on how the WWE should be pushing Jerry the King Lawler right now with the current storyline of him being the #1 contender to the WWE Championship currently held by The Miz, and how they can make this a little bit more of a legitimate matchup between The Miz and Jerry the King Lawler. Today's fans don't know the history of the King, and they kind of briefly mentioned Andy Kaufman the other night on Raw, and they've made some references to some of the King's past victories, but really, I think you have to kind of step back quite a bit, actually. This is the 1988 edition, the December 1988 edition of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It was a magazine that I collected as a child, as a kid, and as a teenager, and there's an article in here called AWA World Champion Jerry Lawler. I've beaten Savage and Flair. I'm the best. So, what does that mean exactly? Well, back in 1988, they did this article on Lawler. It was an interview they did with him, and he talks about a 1985 series of matches against Ric Flair when Flair was the NWA World Champion, and also a series of matches that the King had with Randy Savage when they were both still in Mid-Southern Wrestling. And, you know, Vince and WWE has such a vast library, a collection of old footage from back then, and they have such a talented production department. I don't see why they couldn't have somebody put together a package, a 2 or 3 minute long package, looking back on the King and showing some of these old matches. And also, and I'll get to it in just a second, but I want to read a little bit from this article for just a second. Lawler says, back in this 1988 interview, "I beat Savage," Lawler now says proudly. "I beat Flair too, and you know what that means? It means I'm the best. When I wrestled Flair back in 1985, I knew he was a great wrestler, but I also knew I could beat him. Although I never was able to pin him, I came awfully close quite a few times and would have beat him if he didn't manage to get himself disqualified. As for Savage, well, I never would have dreamed that he'd become world champion one day. To put it bluntly, I kicked his butt." So, capitalize on that, because right now, The Miz coming out there and making fun of Lawler and Cole constantly making fun of Lawler doesn't make him a legitimate threat to the championship. People are looking at this match as what it will probably end up being, and that is a cakewalk for The Miz. Not necessarily a cakewalk, but The Miz will go over and go to WrestleMania, which is what should happen. But, you know, whenever you have somebody contending for the world title or the WWE Championship or any title for that matter, in my opinion, you need to make them look like a credible threat. And I think if the writers did a little bit of research, they could do that with Lawler, and there's only a few weeks left to do it, but I think it's still possibly to be done. So I mentioned the incidents with Savage and with Ric Flair, and there's a lot of great pictures in this article too. Savage bloody mess, and you know, Lawler mentioned that he's been around for about 40 years now, so they've got a lot that they can dig back and look at. 1975, Jerry the King Lawler, and I do remember seeing video of this on TV when I was a kid. Somebody had put a package together, and this was probably, oh gosh, the mid-'80s when they put this piece together about Jerry the King Lawler. In 1975, Lawler beat Andre the Giant by countout, but I remember, and maybe, you know, my imagination is playing into this too, but I remember Lawler brutalizing the Giant, just beating the hell out of him, basically, fist and punches, just galore, and he knocked him out of the ring, and Andre got counted out and wasn't able to make it back into the ring. So why not even use that? I mean, Andre the Giant is still somebody that has the name recognition. Fans today know who Andre is. Fans today know who Ric Flair is, obviously. Fans today know who Savage is, to an extent. I think some of the new fans in the WWE Universe may not remember Randy Savage, but I definitely think the old school fans like myself would definitely get a kick out of seeing some kind of piece like that. You could also throw in Curt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. Lawler beat him for the AWA World Heavyweight Championship, and Hennig, of course, went on to WWE to become the Intercontinental Champion 2 times and was one of Hogan's top contenders Hulk Hogan's Top Contenders back in the late 1980s. Also, throw in some footage of another Hall of Famer, Kerry Von Erich. Lawler beat Kerry Von Erich to unify the World Class and AWA World Heavyweight Championships back in 1988 as well. So why not use some of that? Von Erich went on to become the Texas Tornado in the WWF and held the Intercontinental Championship as well, a title that he won and lost back to Curt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. So why not capitalize on some of this past? And I know you're promoting a guy who's 62 years old, and we're digging up stuff that happened 20, 25 years ago, probably before a lot of the folks that are in the WWE universe right now were even alive for. But I think it would paint this story a little better. It would give fans a little more insight and maybe make them a little more emotionally involved in this title match, which is really, at the end of the day, what you want. You want the fans to cheer for Lawler. You want them to think that you want the fans to think Lawler has a shot at winning the title. And I think if you go into his past and show what he has accomplished, a lot of people today just view him as an announcer who occasionally gets in the ring and wrestles and punches Ted DiBiase in the face and goes in there and pins Ted DiBiase and wrestled The Miz in a ladder match. But there's so much more to the King, and I know he was actually in Southern Illinois but just a few days ago wrestling here. He's been here a couple of other times. He wrestles on a lot of weekends. He does a lot of independent booking still, and he's in great shape for a man his age. So I definitely think that while I don't think he should be the number one contender, he is. So let's take advantage of what we know about him and what we know from his past and exploit it. And exploit's probably not the best word, but let's show it off. Let's showcase what the King has done before and make the fans believe what he can do now. So that's my 1, 2, 3 cents. I want to know what you think. You can subscribe to this channel or leave your comments here. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.